I am glad to be here. I am ecstatic. I am overjoyed. And I stole this from a young person who spoke at a grammar school. I am hyena happy today. I am happy today because of something that we've been talking about for years seems to finally be coming to fruition. Clearly, reliable transportation is viable to our economic vitality of the city of Chicago. It is also important to be able to connect people to meaningful educational choices throughout the city of Chicago. And that means extending the red line from 95th Street to Altgeld Gardens. And so we are really pleased today as the chairman of transportation that it really looks like this job is moving forward. It's going to bring thousands of jobs to people in the city of Chicago, and it is really going to make ease transportation and congestion in the downtown area. So I just want to say thanks to the mayor, and want to say thanks to our president and all those people who've been begging, lobbying, threatening the people in Washington to give us the funds to get this done. And so without further ado, the little giant, Mayor Lightfoot.
All right.
Thank you, Howard.
Thanks.
I think that's a compliment.
That is
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Today we're here to highlight a few actions that were taken earlier during City Council that will move us forward in our mission to make our city more equitable and inclusive place for all. You heard from Chairman Brookins. Also joining me is Chicago Transit Authority President Dorval Carter, Equality Illinois Communications Director Miles Brady Davis, Coldwell Banker Realty Real Estate Agent and Community Champion Michael Lafarge, Mayor's Advisory Council members Malia Arnold, Chicago Therapy Collective Representative Iggy Layden, and I also want to thank the men and women of labor who are here, representing the Laborers Union, representing the Carpenters Union, and many more. I also want to thank Fabiana and Marie from Elise Mallory's family. First and foremost, earlier today a resolution was read to highlight the life and legacy of trans activist Elise Mallory, who passed away at the young age of 31 earlier this year. As you heard, Elise was a passionate advocate for LGBTQ plus rights and was considered a pillar within our community. She made fighting discrimination her life's work, dedicating her time and talents to several LGBTQ plus organizations and causes before co-founding the Chicago Therapy Collective. Through her work at the Chicago Therapy Collective, Elise helped to promote citywide accountability and action to alleviate health disparities within the LGBTQ plus community and advance the community's health and well-being through education, therapy, advocacy, and the arts. During this time, Elise helped to coordinate the collective's annual Transgender Day of Resilience and Transgender Day of Visibility events, and spearheaded the hashtag HireTransNow initiative, which encourages businesses to create welcoming workplaces and connect transgender residents to good-paying jobs. It's clear that Elise had a profoundly positive impact on our community, the LGBTQ plus community, that continues to resonate to this day. That's why when Equality Illinois approached our team and our advisory council on LGBTQ plus affairs to pass a resolution honoring her life and legacy, we were more than happy to do so. We also wanted to take it a step further by taking action to better support our transgender and gender nonconforming residents. Thanks to these collaborative efforts, as well as the passage of our 2023 budget, I'm proud to share that the city will be participating in the hashtag HireTransNow initiative that Elise created and championed. To participate, we will be dedicating monies to the Chicago Therapy Collective to do an assessment of our hiring practices. This will help us identify barriers to inclusion, conduct training for managers, and ultimately to develop a more trans-inclusive hiring process. I also want to thank our HR Commissioner, Chris Owen, who is here with us, who's going to champion this work. To ensure the benefits of this new partnership stretches beyond City Hall, I've encouraged each of our 50 aldermen to recruit 5 businesses in their ward to sign up to the Hire Trans Now pledge. Excuse me. Excuse me. There's something about this room. I want to thank the Therapy Collective, their partners, for working with state, city leadership to make this impactful collaboration. And as we continue to observe Trans Awareness Week and prepare for Trans Day of Resilience this upcoming Sunday, let us never forget the impact that Elise has had on our city, and may she rest in peace. Earlier today, the City Council meeting, we took another step forward in making our city a more equitable place. I'm excited to share that we have proposed a new transit tax increment financing district to provide up to $959 million in local funds and leverage up to $2.1 billion in federal transit administration funding to finally get the Red Line extension project off the ground. This is an historic day, and this is because this is an historic project. This project represents one of the most critical investments in the CTA's history and will undoubtedly be a transformative development for our far South Side communities. The far South Side is the only part of Chicago that doesn't have a rail line that extends to it, a fact that I know many believe is totally unacceptable. To address this half-century-old inequity, the Red Line Extension Project will add 5.6 miles to the Red Line and create 4 new, fully accessible stations at 103rd, 111th, Michigan Avenue, near 116th Street and 130th Street, bringing into transit the Altgard Gardens housing complex that's been cut off from direct access to transportation in our city. But beyond that, which is all important, this project is also just more than a transit project. It's an equity economic investment project. By providing the far South Side with better access to the L, this project will connect residents to jobs, education, commerce, while serving as a catalyst for economic development, as residents and visitors alike will be able to get to the neighborhoods there more easily. This includes South Side residents and neighborhoods like the Pullman Historic District, a national landmark, an incredible place to learn more about Chicago's history. The project will also bolster investments we are making through our economic initiatives like Invest Southwest, which we just celebrated the 3-year anniversary of yesterday. The Enhanced and Improved Neighborhood Opportunity Fund and the Chicago Recovery Plan. All in all, the Red Line extension will benefit our city as a whole, strengthen our entire CTA system, and ultimately drive our post-pandemic economic recovery and prosperity. And ladies and gentlemen, what we're talking about in practical terms is thousands of great paying union jobs. Union members will be on this project for years. Union members will build the economic recovery along both sides of the stops, and this is great for working families in our city. So I'm pleased to share that we will make sure that the community voice is at the table. You'll hear a little bit more about that from President Carter. There's so much to dream, so much to envision, but importantly, so much to get done that this project will open up so many incredible economic opportunities for people on the South Side, but people all over our city who call this city home. Good union-paying jobs. I'm excited about the opportunity. I have to thank President Carter and his team. I know that this has been a lifelong career ambition. I want to thank the many members of Congress from Chicago who have been at our side working and lobbying the federal government to make sure that the monies are there. I also want to thank Secretary Buttigieg for understanding how incredibly important this project is and his team. We want to get shovels in the ground as quickly as possible, and we have taken, I think, a big momentous step. More to do. We've got to make sure we get this passed in December, but I'm excited about the opportunities that it presents to our city. And now I'd like to invite President Carter to share some more details about this incredible legacy project and what it's going to mean for the South Side and for our city. President Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to take a moment to also extend my thanks and appreciation to the entire City Council for the time and consideration, not just today, but in the recent months and in the days ahead. City Council has an arduous task of not only guiding the welfare of Chicago's communities individually, but the city as a whole. I am here to remind all that at the heart of any conversation regarding the well-being of our communities and cities must be public transit. You've heard me say this a million times by now, but it's 100% true. Public transit is more than just moving people from point A to point B. It's about creating economic opportunity in our region. With each investment made in CTA, in return, it has helped revitalize communities, spur investment and development, attract businesses, and create jobs and opportunities. And this is exactly what we propose to do with the Red Line extension, only on a much grander scale. RLE is more than just a 5.6-mile extension of Chicago's busiest rapid transit line. It is a transformative investment for the far South Side, and upon its completion, it will provide long-awaited and much-needed connection to jobs, education, commerce, while also serving as a catalyst for economic development in that region. More broadly, for the city and region, RLE will bring improved transit connections, new affordable housing options, new retail and commerce opportunities, access to a diverse talent pool for employers, as well as new jobs and contracting opportunities both now and well beyond the completion of this project. Fortunately, there is no better time than now to move forward with RLE, which, as the mayor indicated, has been promised since 1969. For the first time in our nation's history, the federal government has made it a goal that 40% of the overall benefits of certain federal investments must flow to disadvantaged communities that have been marginalized, underserved, and overburdened by pollution. With unprecedented levels of federal funding now available, CTA is now well positioned for the securement of exactly those kind of funds. And I would say that the RLE project, and I've talked to Secretary Buttigieg and the others in administration, is the poster child of exactly the type of investment that this administration wants to support and provide funding for. The proposed RLE Transit TIF is our best opportunity to secure those much-needed federal funds and to secure them now. Importantly, the RLE Transit TIF is similar to the Transit TIF that I created with the help of City Council for the Red Purple Modernization Project on the north side. It is not just an additional tax levy, meaning no one's taxes will change just because their property or business is within the boundaries. Further, transit TIFs share their increment with all the other taxing districts rather than using the entire incremental revenue stream to support the projects within the district. It is truly a win-win proposition for everyone. RLE is something that is both a professional and a personal priority to me. I grew up on the south side of the city. I experienced the disconnect in transit investments on the south side compared to other parts of the city. I understood the opportunity to get on a train and to go downtown or go to the museums or go to the movie theater, the independence that it gives you, the opportunities that it creates for people who are marginalized communities. And that is why It has been my priority since I first came to CTA as president to make this project happen. And I have to tell you, I can't be more thrilled about today. Certainly, under the leadership of Mayor Lori Lightfoot, we are both 100% committed to seeing this project become a reality. More progress has been made on this project in the last few years than in the past several decades. And now, it is time to get your support to help clear one of those biggest hurdles. The approval of the RLE Transit TIF is our opportunity to work together using fresh, new perspectives and deliver on our shared goal of providing future generations with an even more prosperous and equitable Chicago through this once-in-a-lifetime project called RLE. And with that, I'd now like to introduce Michael Lafarge, who is one of the biggest supporters of RLE, to share a few thoughts. Michael?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Lafarge. I am a commercial real estate broker, but more importantly, I live, I work, and I worship in Roseland. I'm here today to share with you the importance of the Red Line extension and to the community and the surrounding communities. This project has been very long in coming. What happens to a dream deferred? What happens? In 1958, CTA proposed the rapid rail transit to the far south side of Chicago. 1958, in the New Horizons Plan. In 1969, Mayor Richard J. Daley promised Roseland the extension of the rapid transit line to that area. In the 1980s and 90s, CTA and the Regional Transportation Authority discussed this plan and moving forward. In 2004, the Red Line extension received approval through a ballot vote referendum. In 2014, the Red Line Extension Coalition, a community group, continued the Developing Communities Project work and advocating for the Red Line extension. Today, 100,000 people in these communities, the size of Springfield and Elgin, could benefit and are advocating for this Red Line extension. That's 64 years. That is a long time for a dream and a promised gift to these communities for a basic need. The Red Line extension will provide equity. 24% of the proposed service area will service people that live under the poverty line. 24% live under the poverty line. 60% at the 130th Street live under the poverty line. It will save riders 30 minutes in travel time from 130th to the Loop. It will provide access to CTA's vast, very vast network of transit. It will increase accessibility to 40% of more jobs for these people. And it will also provide access to additional education and recreational opportunities. It will help improve the air quality and reduce greenhouse gases in this very challenged and polluted area. It is scurrilous to the reputation of this city and a travesty if the Red Line extension transit TIF is not approved. Arguments not to provide funding for this project based on post-COVID problems and the racist outcomes that segregating Chicago has caused will affect the wrong people. We need to treat the cause, not the symptom, by investing in neighborhoods and providing opportunities, as the mayor suggested. Crime on the CTA must be reduced, but CTA is not the cause of crime. Crime is a symptom of the cost of segregation. It is a symptom. The Metropolitan Planning Council studied the cost of segregation and found it has cost $4.4 billion in lost earnings, a 30% higher homicide rate, and 83,000 fewer bachelor degrees. These numbers and more represent the real cost that Chicago bears due to the high levels of economic and racial segregation. Not authorizing the red line extension transit TIF, as the City Council has approved the North Side transit TIF, has hints to be a form of redlining, the illegal act of refusing money, mortgages, loans, insurance to someone because it is deemed that they might live in a poor financial risk area. Do not, Alderman, do not redline and segregate Chicago by not approving the red line extension. Christmas is near. Please, Alderman, Council, use your power to make history. Improve the lives of thousands. Rebuild and repopulate the far south side by approving a gift of a regional transit TIF for the red line extension out to 130th Street. 64 years, it's a long time to dream, to advocate, and wait for what is needed for this community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Iggy Layden.
Hi, everyone. My name is Iggy Layden. They, them pronouns, please. I am an LGBTQ affirming therapist, activist, and director of Chicago Therapy Collective. And today I would like to tell you about Elise Mallory, as well as invite all of you in this room and listening to do your part to alleviate the mental health stressors, the discrimination, the marginalization that our trans community members are facing day in and day out. Elise was family to me. Elise was a leader to our community. Born and raised on the north side, in and out of the neighborhood of Andersonville, Elise was a champion for Black trans lives. And Elise was a proponent, strong, fierce proponent of asking allies to do their part. I think about Elise every day, and myself and those who love Elise still aren't exactly sure how to heal from or grieve Elise's death. There's a lot of ambiguity still surrounding her death. But regardless of the cause of Elise's death, what happened here today at City Council would have made Elise very proud. What happened today with the commitment from the mayor's office, as well as the call to action and support from many of our alders, is actually the dream, the vision that Elise talked about at the very beginning of our work together. Elise had a vision from the start that the highest levels of city government would support trans community members and increasing inclusion in Chicago neighborhoods and Chicago workplaces. And that is what happened today. However, Elise had been saying this for a long time. And it shouldn't take a tragedy of one of our trans community members in order to heed our trans community members' plea for change. This weekend, while our trans community is mourning the deaths of many of our trans community members, in addition to Elise, 35 trans community members who died by violent means, we ask our allies to ask yourselves, what are you going to do to support trans justice, trans health and well-being in the city of Chicago? We invite you to show up to our town hall on Saturday that Chicago Therapy Collective is putting on with Brave Space Alliance, Life is Work, Equality in Illinois, and the support of our other LGBTQ organizations to hear the concerns facing the trans community today. We invite you to mourn with us on Sunday as we remember and honor Elise and our other fallen siblings. And for those of you who have not yet heard the call to action that the mayor is supporting and fellow alder people are supporting, please take the small step towards increasing inclusion in your workplace, in your organizations, on behalf of trans workers, on behalf of trans patients, clients, customers. Chicago organizations have a major role to play in improving the health and well-being of our trans community. And this is what Elise cared about most. This is what Elise was most passionate about in her activism with CTC and the other organizations that she supported in Chicago. So with that, I would just like to invite folks to take just a pause, a moment of silence, to remember our fallen siblings this year. And please take this personally as it is to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will take your questions.
So, Mayor, members of the media, Amanda and I will bring down the mics. 2 questions per reporters, and we'll kick it off from Bradley to Bajian.
Thank you for those comments. I apologize for a political question following those important remarks. Mayor, hello. Just now, sort of a red line expansion victory lap, even though it doesn't have final approval. We're not hearing from you as much. You're not having events where we can ask you questions as much. You're now airing television campaign commercials. Has the race for mayor entered a new phase?
Well, look, I'm not here to talk about political campaigns or politics, but obviously with just a few short months away from the February primary date, of course, we're kicking it in high gear. And with that comes a visible digital and TV campaign, and I'm excited about it.
Pat Quinn has summoned us for some sort of announcement tomorrow. Do you want him to not run for mayor and back you?
Who's that? I'm sorry?
Pat Quinn, former Governor Pat Quinn.
I think people should do what they think is in their best interest.
Do you want his support?
I want the support of every single voter in the city.
All right. Thank you. Craig Wall, ABC.
Mayor, last week we heard Chuy Garcia jumping into the race. As Tamon mentioned, Pat Quinn could be jumping in tomorrow. There's some big names jumping in. Who do you see as, the biggest concern for you of those who are getting in the race?
Well, once again, I don't think this is the time or place to talk about politics or political campaign, but I will answer the question the same way I answered it yesterday when Craig asked me. I'm not worried about any of those folks. What I need to do is do my job. Do the job that the people of this city elected me to do, and to keep delivering for them every single day. And as we move closer, I'm confident that we'll have opportunities to continue to share with people in the city the good work that we've done, the jobs that we've brought, the economic development, a economy that is second to none in the country, and the progress that we've made on a number of other issues like public safety, like making sure that we are providing mental health services in all of our communities. There's a long list of accomplishments that we have done over these past 3.5 years that I am confident once the voters hear that they will make as somebody said to me, the only rational choice, which is to give me 4 more years. But I take nothing for granted, and I'm going to keep fighting to make sure I bring that message to every neighborhood in our city.
With so many candidates in the race, I think we're up to 14 or 15 now. That might suggest that there are a lot of people who might be unhappy with the last 3.5 years or so. Do you worry at all about the anybody but Lori Lightfoot mentality that could be out there?
What I care about is what the voters think. Lots of people are going to jump in, jump out. They're going to say, I can do this, I can do that. The voters will judge. That's the only thing that matters.
Mary Ann Ahern, NBC.
And again, I apologize because I know it's a serious topic that we've talked about today, but we don't see you as often. Another campaign question. How about your petitions? How are they going? Will you file Monday? And we are hearing that you now have increased what you pay your circulators to $9 a signature, which would be a new high.
Well, first of all, I have no idea because I don't get into those details. Our signatures are going fine, and we will be filing on November 28th.
Why are you waiting?
There's no magic to it, but we'll wait till the 28th, the last day to file, as we did the last time 4 years ago.
Also, I have a question from one of my colleagues at NBC. He was at an event, Christian Farr was at an event today, East Garfield, where the shooting took place about 2 weeks ago, I believe. Shooting victims there are feeling forgotten. They say the mass shooting in Highland Park was on everyone's radar, but they feel left out and have not received much help.
Well, that can't be said of the city of Chicago. As you well know, I attended a vigil there a few days after the fact called by Alderman Irvin. Hundreds of people were there. I spoke along with a number of electeds, members of the clergy, and this is a community that I have spent an enormous amount of time and resources and made sure that we are being there for that community. Where obviously the police department is aggressively following a number of different leads that have come, and it's certainly my hope that we will bring the people responsible to justice as soon as possible. I think what the community was talking about is Highland Park became a national news story. Lots of people flocked there. And I think rightfully what members of the community in East Garfield Park, but other parts of the city want to say, we have challenges and tragedies that occur. Don't forget us. We will never do that as the city of Chicago. And we've got to keep making sure that we lift up the stories of the victims and the survivors.
Craig Delmore, WBBM.
Nothing from Pratt?
Yeah, we'll come this way. And
Okay, all right, go ahead.
I will just say I'm uncomfortable with skipping over my colleague,
Give
but
the microphone back to him. We'll go to Pratt.
I didn't think anything of that. So,
Neither did I.
but thank
Everybody
you.
gets a chance to have at it.
So, Mayor, there were photos and there are now reports on social media and in Black Club and the Sun-Times about your security detail parking in a bike lane while you got donuts. What happened there, and did you talk to your detail about it?
The first I heard of this is the reports in the media. Obviously, they shouldn't have parked in a bike lane. Pretty simple. No bike lanes, no fire hydrants. They shouldn't have done it, period.
And then the BGA had a story about the law department settlements and risk management. It raised a bunch of concerns about issues of how the data is kept and about how the city is managing its judgment costs. This was a big deal for you when you were running for mayor. This is still something that you wanted to work on. Where is the city, in your view, on risk management and improving its practices? And what do you still need to do?
Well, I haven't read the BGA story, so I can't comment on any of the specifics. But risk management is a big deal for us. We hired and empowered the first ever risk manager in the city. We are working on standing up an enterprise management system. We are coordinating at a city level across city departments like never before, and we're looking at ways in which we can continue to mitigate risk across the entire enterprise. So there's a lot of work that has been done. There will a lot of work that will continue to be done. For example, one of the things that we did early on was reform the workers' compensation program, which was a $100 million program run by the former chairman of the Finance Committee. Nobody knew what was going on. When we started to dig into that, found out that literally hundreds of had been open for years without any resolution, which was costing the city an inordinate amount of money. We have professionalized that with the help of a third-party vendor. So risk management is something that's very, very important to me personally, and we have demonstrated that by the investments and the empowerment that we've done with personnel and, frankly, the training that we've done across city departments related to risk management and how we can mitigate those risks.
Craig Delmore, WBM.
Are you comfortable now, sir?
I am very comfortable, Mayor. Thank you. Mr. Lafargue expressed some concerns about what the city council is going to do when it considers the new TIF district. What is your concern? What What are you worried about as far as getting this through the city council?
Well, I think you assume that something that isn't necessarily so. We just introduced a piece of legislation today. We've been talking to members of the City Council about it. Those conversations will continue, and it's my hope that this will be heard in the appropriate Transportation Committee either later this month or in early December, in time for a full City Council vote in December. Time is of the essence, and we've got a lot of work to do between now and again to make sure that the residents in the communities understand it. We've been working with our friends in organized labor who will stand to benefit mightily from this TIF being financed, and I think I don't want to speak for Mr. Lefebvre, but what I will say is, what I've heard is, hey, we did this for the north side without any hesitation, without any concerns. Let's do it for the south side. Let's do it for these communities that have been disconnected from rail service for forever. First time that I went down to Alcal Gardens some time ago, it is a place that is utterly disconnected from our city. If you go to Michigan Avenue in Roseland and you think about what's going on down there, or more importantly, what's not going down there, the fact that we could have a transit stop on Michigan Avenue in Roseland will breathe new life to that community. And the potential for economic development around these different stops is exponential. What I hear from the community is are extraordinarily excited, as passionate, maybe not as passionate as Mr. Lefebvre, but close. But importantly, are optimistic that finally, decades in the making, that their call for being connected up to the Red Line will be heard, and be heard with plans that reflect what the community wants to see in terms of economic development. So I think that this is an incredibly important inflection point for rail transportation, but also for investment in the far south side, and giving those communities the same kind of investment that other communities, particularly in the north side, have enjoyed for decades. This opens up so much potential on the far south side, and I'm excited that this is happening on my and our watch. I know Dorval's a man of few words, but he is beyond excited about the possibilities. This is really a dream come true. If you're a transit geek, this is what you live for. This opportunity doesn't come around very often, and we want to take full advantage of the historic and unprecedented levels of federal dollars that are there. But we've got to demonstrate to the federal government that we've got skin in the game, that we are willing to use our dollars to say, yes, we will match what is necessary to get this done and get it rolling.
My other question involves the study of the city's hiring practices with an eye toward the trans community. Yes. What are the challenges that the city might have, or frankly any workplace might have, not only in hiring more trans people, but making sure that the workplace itself is welcoming? Yeah.
Great question. Well, first and foremost, we've got to make sure that we actually continue the work that we've been on to shorten our hiring process, which when I walked in the door was about 120 days. We've now shrunk it exponentially, but more work to do there. Number two, we've got to make sure that we actually live our values. Our values have to be manifest in the work that we do every single day. It can't just be words on a piece of paper saying we don't discriminate, we're a welcoming city. We got to show it. And another way for us to demonstrate that inclusivity, that equity, is to make sure that we are building pathways for members of the trans community to be hired in city government. And I welcome the opportunity for the study for us to work in collaboration with the collective to talk about, from their perspective, what we can do in our hiring practices to build opportunities. Where it starts is saying, you're welcome. You are welcome to come and work in this workplace, and that we're going to make sure that we live our values and that we make a space for all of God's children, including our trans brothers and sisters. So there's more work to be done, but I also think as a city government, it's critically important for us to lead by example. We can't ask the private sector to open up opportunities. We can't ask labor to open up opportunities that we're not doing ourselves, and this, I think, gives us another opportunity to say, truly, we are welcoming, We stand for equity. We stand for inclusion.
Sam, WGN.
Good afternoon, Mayor
Yes, sir.
Lightfoot. Earlier this week, the CPD released new data that shows over the last 18 months, between 130 and 250 officers have contact with the Employee Assistance Program each week. However, the department still does not have a designated clinical therapist for each of the department's 22 districts. Now, when I spoke with Alder O'Shea earlier this week, he voiced his support for a top-down review of EAP by the Public Safety Committee. Would you support such a review?
I don't have any objection to such a review, but as Alderman O'Shea well knows, and I've encouraged him to help us with this, there's a shortage of clinicians nationwide, period. And then when you look at the clinicians that are willing to engage with police officers and their families, that shrinks the pool even more. I think Dr. Sobel, who heads up the department's EAP program, is working tirelessly to get to our goal, which is to have a clinician in all of our 22 districts. But meanwhile, we can't stop. And the fact that we are seeing more officers taking advantage of the services that are there. When I came into office, we had 3 clinicians. I now believe that I think the number is 13. We want to get to 22, and frankly, we could probably exceed that number. But given the nationwide hiring shortage of clinicians, this is tough waters for us to navigate. But we're doing everything we can to fill those positions as quickly as we can, and looking at, do we need to reevaluate the pay that is being offered? But make no mistake, this is something that we're fully committed to working hard at, and I'm heartened by the fact that officers are taking advantage of these opportunities. I just attended a police graduation yesterday, and one of the things that both I and the superintendent, and interestingly, the recruit who was the designated speaker for the class, all 3 of us talked about officer wellness. All 3 of us talked about making sure that officers and their families understand that the resources are available for them and that they take advantage of it. Being a police officer is a really hard job. They see trauma every single day. They're the only profession that when somebody calls on their worst day in an emergency, whether it's a mental health crisis, whether it's violence, police officers run to answer that call. That's a hard and heavy burden to bear every single day, and we need them to be able to take advantage of the services that are available, whether it's through their private doctors, whether it's through the services that are provided by the department, because we need them to be well and take care of themselves. And we owe that to them. I think it's one of the least things that we can do. So we're going to keep fighting to make sure that we get all of those clinician positions filled as quickly as possible. And I think we're well on our way.
And with respect to filling the positions, is it a matter of increasing the offered salary to attract more high-quality candidates?
Well, when you have a shortage everywhere, in every industry, I don't think it's just a question of increasing the salaries, although that is definitely one of the things that we're looking for. We've got to get more people going into clinical support. A lot of the clinicians, as I understand it, through the course of the pandemic, were also part of the Great Resignation. Stress and trauma among clinicians is also real, and they've got to also practice self-care. So again, if there was an easy solution, we would have already adopted it, but we're going to continue working hard in this environment, understanding the challenges that are out there in the workforce.
Maria.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi there.
At your last press conference, you said that part of your hesitancy about putting the real estate transfer tax question on the ballot was that it would be seen as a property tax increase by voters. Is that still part of your reason for opposing it? And if so, would it make sense to start combating that narrative as opposed to blocking or delaying the proposal?
Oh, I didn't say I opposed it. You made that
hesitant. Is that still part of your hesitancy?
So here's what I would say. I think where we all agree is that none of God's children should be living on the street, period. I think there's universal agreement on that. What I've also said is, and I know this from talking to many of the people that are involved on a regular basis in helping support and bring services to the people that are living on the street, it's a very complex set of reasons as to why people are there. Some of it is financial. Some of it is related to mental health. Some of it's related to addiction issues. And for some, it's all of the above plus. So we have, in this administration, I think, demonstrated our commitment to addressing the challenge of homelessness in our city by the literally tens of millions of dollars that we've increased budget after budget. The budget that was just passed last week provided more resources for homelessness and additional staffing to make sure that we've got a robust team that can go out, engage with stakeholders, and do the work that's necessary to try to bring people into care. We also invested more resources into rapid rehousing and no barrier shelters. So we are working hand in glove with community stakeholders, advocates, and experts to address the challenge of homelessness in our city. And I feel compelled to say, while we have a challenge here, we're not seeing the same kinds of challenges that cities on the West Coast or in the Northwest are facing. But one person on the street, in my view, is one too many. And we've got to keep doing the work to break through and bring those people into stable housing to address the issues that they have, whether it's financial, whether it's mental health, whether it's substance abuse. That is the wraparound services that we must continue to provide, and we are fully committed to doing that.
So, sorry, follow up on that. Does that include putting the real estate transfer tax question on the ballot, and where does your hesitancy stand on that then?
What I've said is I'm willing to speak with anyone who understands and recognizes the complexities of the challenges that we face. As I said before, I've heard from a number of city council colleagues, I've certainly heard from the realtors and others that this is a very tough market for something like that to happen. And so we've got to deal with the practical realities of where we are in this moment and continue to work collaboratively, emphasis on collaboratively, on solutions.
Can you give us an update on committee chairmanships? Do you still plan to push Alderman James Kappelman as chair of the Education Committee? Do you have a plan for replacing Alderman Cardenas as environmental chair?
We're working on it.
Tessa, WBZ.
Hi there. I was wondering, what do you hope to see next for the Whole Foods location that closed in Englewood?
Well, let me say this, and I made these comments on the floor. Making sure that we are aggressive in closing the food deserts that plague too many of our communities, particularly in areas on the south and the west side, but also other areas, is a huge priority for me. And I was very unhappy with the way in which Whole Foods has conducted itself with respect to the location of 63rd and Halsted. I'm unhappy about the way in which they announced that they were leaving, this most recent announcement. I'm unhappy about what they've done in terms of the employees. That's always top of mind for me, and I was given assurances back in June that all the employees would be taken care of. I don't know that that's the case. But what I'll also say is it's really hard because we've been at it now since June with members of my team, members in the Englewood community to find a replacement that would provide good quality and affordable grocery offerings at that 63rd and Halsted location. Not easy work to do. One of the proposals is the company Yellow Banana. I'm hoping that we'll be able to work through the challenges there and do it in a way that is respectful to the needs of the community, do it in a way that's respectful to the concerns of the local aldermen. There's a lot more engagement that has to happen, but as you saw from the comments of members of the City Council, different people have different reactions to the solutions that are there. Yes, of course, in the first instance, we asked some of and really lobbied a number of the local grocery stores, whether it was Jewel, whether it was Mariano's, whether it was Pete's or others, to look at that space. Ultimately, they got to make a business decision as to what they want, but it's not for lack of effort on our part. And I think we've got a solution that will ultimately work for the community, but we've got some work to do.
We heard some concerns today from community members with the Save-A-Lot stores. Some aldermen had previously suggested maybe a rebranding would be necessary. Do you support or think a rebranding of the name would be necessary to get community buy-in? And how do you plan to see that community buy-in, and that input influence the future and success of the stores?
Well, again, ultimately, this is a private transaction. I'm aware of the suggestions about a different name, and I think that those are actively under consideration.
Alice, Tribune?
Hi, Mayor.
Hi there.
To follow up on Bring Chicago Home, to clarify, are you going to respond to their calls to meet and work out a compromise before the December 11th deadline for council to approve the measure for the February ballot, and why or why not?
I didn't hear a call to meet and compromise. I heard a call to meet and agree to what they wanted. If there is an opportunity for us to sit down and talk, I've always been open to the conversation. I met with them for the first time back in 2019, but they've also got to be willing to take some steps, I think, in the direction of a majority of the city council members. And I don't know that that's the case, but my door is always open.
And then last week, voters in 3 wards overwhelmingly supported a non-binding referendum calling on CDPH to reopen closed mental health centers to support a non-police 9/11 response program. Some mayoral candidates are also weighing in on this. Where do you stand on what that referendum's calling for?
Well, I didn't see the specific referendums, but I've been very, very clear about what our practice is for delivering mental health services in the city, and I'll repeat it again for you. When all the clinics were open, 2,500 people across our city were being served. 2,500. No children, no adolescents. Since we have implemented the continuum of care in the fall of 2019, we are now in over 50-plus neighborhoods. We are on track to deliver services to 60,000 Chicagoans this year. And we now, for the first time, deliver mental health services to children and adolescents. I don't know what information was provided in those various wards about what's actually happening, but that's the facts. And I'm very comfortable with the plan that we have implemented since 2019. Our goal is to be in all 77 neighborhoods by the end of this year. And to be clear, our policy is no wrong door. Meaning, doesn't matter if you have insurance, doesn't matter what your citizenship status is, doesn't matter what your needs are. We're going to provide those services in a community-based way that is culturally literate and competent at no cost. I think that's pretty good.
Heather, WTTW.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi there.
In one of your commercials, you acknowledge that you haven't always done everything perfectly, but that you learn from your mistakes. Can you give us an example of something you don't think you've done perfectly, but that you've learned from in your 3+ years as mayor?
I would say I'm a human being like everybody else is. I'm a child of the Lord. I'm not perfect. The things that we've done haven't always been perfect, but we always try to do the best that we can, collaborate with relevant stakeholders, learn from any challenges, and move forward.
I wanted to follow up on Mary Ann's question. Are you concerned that by not filing your petitions on the first day of Monday that you will be signaling to your challengers that you're vulnerable or that you have been having trouble getting petition signatures?
So when you come on November 28th and you see the wheelbarrow or the hand truck that we pull in with all of our petitions, I think that will answer your question.
Aaron, Daily Line.
We did the same thing 4 years ago, got on the ballot, no problem, and here I sit.
Aaron,
So
Daily Line.
this is something that you guys talk about, but there's no issues here.
Hi there. So your office sent out a memo to aldermen saying that next year's city council meeting schedule will include quarterly hearings with sister agencies. This is something that some aldermen have made similar proposals on before. Why is this something you support now, and why is it important to hold these hearings?
I think it's important for members of the city council to have an opportunity to hear from CEOs of the sister agencies. They just heard from CEO, our President Carter last week. And so we're going to fold that into the cadence of city council committees.
Today is the deadline for people to apply to be the next 12th Ward alderman. When will we see who's on the committee that will review those applications?
Hopefully soon.
Thank you. Justin Lawrence.
Aaron just had the 2 questions I was going to ask, so I'll move on. I do want to follow up on Mariah's question about Bring Chicago Home. You kind of, you suggested that she was making an assumption that you opposed the proposal, and you've said that you're willing perhaps to compromise on it if the other side is willing to compromise. But also this week, you have been working to block that proposal, right? Your IGA team worked to prevent a quorum on Monday to just hold the hearing and have that public comment period. Up until yesterday, there was a Rules Committee meeting that could have approved 3 other resolutions that would have blocked that from getting on the ballot. Why are you working so hard to defeat that proposal when it's something that, as you know, you supported in 2019?
Again, you're making a whole lot of assumptions there, friend. I was there at that city council meeting on Monday and tried to work with Alderwoman Haddon. I was told that they were going to have a quorum that we would proceed. That quorum didn't materialize. Proponents of measures have to also do the work to make sure that they get their colleagues on board, that they educate them, that they make sure that they get people there. So the proponents weren't able to muster a quorum. That's not on me. I was there. I was ready to proceed.
And on the 12th ward appointment, I think it's the 12th ward appointment. I think the applications are maybe due today.
Correct.
I spoke to Alderman Cardenas. He said he didn't suggest that he's directly asked you to nominate his former chief of staff, but he did say she's very qualified and he would be sad if you didn't nominate her. We're only 2 or 3 months out from the election. Do you have any hesitancy to nominating someone who's already campaigning for the race, whether it's either her or someone else who's also applied to be appointed?
Look, my obligation under the law is to make sure that we fill a city council vacancy, and I intend to do that.
Lauren, CBS.
Good afternoon, Mayor. My question is about a school in Woodlawn. We had residents in the 20th Ward that noticed that the vacant school had construction crews there back in October. When we asked our office what was going on, because we had been told there was a migrant shelter in the works, your office told me there was not work being done for a migrant shelter, and CPS told me that it was routine maintenance work. But our FOIA records that came back this week said it was for a migrant shelter. So we are curious what you are using taxpayer money for to prep for migrants.
Well, we've used a lot of taxpayer money to support the migrants that have come to our city. We've had almost 3,000 or maybe a little bit more than that, and we are making accommodations for them everywhere that we possibly can. I think I said when one of your colleagues asked me this question some time ago that I asked my team to come up with a list of possibilities all across our city, because at that time, in late September, early October, we were seeing 3 and 4 buses a day coming to Chicago. Thankfully, those buses have substantially lessened, but we're about making sure that we can do the work and prepare for every contingency. So we looked at a number of different locations all over the city, and obviously vacant schools were on the list. No surprise there.
Do you have any explanation for why we were told one thing, but FOIA records show something else?
Well, I don't know what your FOIA records show, but what I can tell you is, as I just said, I asked my team to look at all possibilities across our city. So depending on what the FOIA records are and the point in time, but obviously this was something that was a rapidly evolving situation. So because someone looked at something at one point in time doesn't mean that this was the final decision. If it was a final decision, they'd be there right now.
Thanks a lot, Mayor. That's a wrap, everyone. Have a great day. Appreciate it.